I just want to thank you so much for having me at your absolutely beautiful and stunning studio. Is that what I would call it?
Yes, yeah.
It is such a calming space. As soon as I actually drove up, I already felt a calmness. And you know, I'm very intuitive and very spiritual.
Yes.
And even just the way you and I met.
Right away, it was a connection.
Love it.
Yeah.
For those listening who don't know who you are, I still call you the rock star crystal queen. You know that. And you are so incredible. You are so many things beautiful.
Thank you.
And I already see we have a
too.
Kleenex here.
We do.
Because we're going to put this at the center because I know you have a story. I felt your story. And I felt it the second I walked into Lucy's beautiful new studio.
Yes.
And wellness center, and I said, oh my God, who made those wings? She says, oh, you know, they were gifted to me through what, I'll find out, and da-da-da. And this was very, very new, and I think we had somewhere to go, and immediately before I left, she gave me your contact information. I looked you up on Instagram, and I'm like, be still my beating heart.
Yes.
This woman is a freaking rock star.
Oh, thank you.
So
thank you for seeing me, because, you know, like, it's one thing, you know, in order to see the beauty in someone else, you have to first know your own beauty.
That is powerful, girl.
Yeah.
Wow.
So sometimes people say to me, you're so beautiful. And I say, but it's your beauty. Because in order to see my beauty, you're recognizing what beauty really is.
Wow. I feel like that should be almost a Disney movie. Don't you think?
That would be amazing.
And when did you find your beauty? Because it feels to me like it's not new. I think you know now hindsight is great. I know you know it's always been there.
Yes. Yeah.
But I feel like you didn't know it.
I didn't. All my life, you know, whether it be my parents or my godparents or, you know, my sponsor, whom I love, like my own mom, they would always tell me, you're so special, you're so special. And all my life, they knew me. And it was like this, you know, this shining star within me. And I didn't understand it. And I was like, well, what are they seeing? What are they seeing? And I think through all of the trials that I've been through in all my life, whether it be my health or, you know, with business, I've had some ups and downs.
Being an entrepreneur.
The entrepreneur life, like
that's
this.
part of it. So,
Yeah.
so then, but what about when you say this? What is this?
Like, well, this
where
is
you are today.
Where I am today. You know, I had to be in the valley. I had to be down there. And it sucks. Oh. It really sucks being down there.
Tell me about it.
And I just, you know, a couple months ago, you know, because I'll get like words that come to me and just complete phrases. And the phrase was, the valley is what makes the climb worthwhile. So it's, you know,
that is a t-shirt we're making. Yeah. That's going to be all blinged out in crystal, by the way.
Let's do it.
Wow. That is, now, is that something that came to you just all by yourself?
All by myself, yeah. So I will be doing certain
She will be
things.
trademarking that.
Yes, trademarking.
Nobody is stealing that. I wonder, should we turn down your beautiful calm music?
Yeah, we can do that.
Do you mind if we do?
For sure.
Only because I don't want
anybody.
I don't want anybody to miss
Yes.
the wealth of knowledge that you have. And as you can tell, for, you know, the way that I do things is very organic, and I just want you to be you, and I want you to sort of resonate with everybody else that is in the trenches. Like that there is hope, there is light, there is, you're not always going to feel like that. And I know for me, when I was in the trenches, and I am going to use that, but I will always definitely say it's your saying, is that you feel like you're always going to feel like that, and you're never going to get out.
Yes. You always feel like, oh, it can't get worse than this. Like, I have hit the bottom.
Until it does.
Yeah, but you need to get to that bottom. And it is in there's a reason why I have that surrender tattoo on me.
I love this.
You have to get to that point when you are down there and you just say, I can't do this anymore by myself. And you surrender it and you give it to God, the angels, the universe, whatever you believe in.
Yeah.
You give it to them and you say, take this.
Yeah.
You know,
take the wheel.
Take the wheel. And my next tattoo will be over here. I've already seen it. It will be a cross that'll say, thy will be done. Because it's a 2-step process.
For everybody that wants to know, all my blonde hairs have been standing up since the second I walked through the door. And Lucy always says, that's angels.
Angels validating.
That
Yes.
this is, and what you are saying so resonates with me, and I'm sure it'll
Yes.
resonate with so many other people.
Absolutely.
But your story is one of faith.
Absolutely.
It's one of hope.
Yes.
It's one of suffering.
Yes.
But then it's one of light.
Yes.
And isn't it beautiful?
It
Because
is.
life, I think, is not all rainbows and unicorns,
nothing.
which I love unicorns and rainbows, but
it's not.
it's not.
It's really not. You know, you gotta go through that pain. Pain is power. Pain is power. It
Another
always.
t-shirt.
Yes.
Note to self.
Ooh,
Pain
okay,
is
that's another t-shirt. Pain is power. Pain always leaves a gift. I have goosebumps. Pain always leaves a gift. What is that gift? It's the lesson behind the pain. There's something that it's teaching you. You've been through those dark times. Guess what? There's a little peak. There's a wound. Inside that wound, you'll see that light coming through.
Did you know that though when you were going through
No.
that? Because for those watching that are in the trenches,
Yeah.
it feels like it's never going to get
It
better.
does. It
And
does.
you know, people will often say to me, oh, I see you as this big, powerful, you know, I am unbreakable house suiting. And I'm like, do you know why I call it unbreakable? Because I've been broken.
Yes.
Not once,
Yes.
not 5 times,
Yes.
325
Yes,
times.
absolutely.
But I've risen from that
Yeah.
pain
Yes.
and from the trauma
Yes.
and come out on the other side when you feel like you're not
Yeah,
going to, whether it's a
absolutely.
loss of a parent, of a
Yeah.
sibling, of a business, of change,
Yeah.
something to do with your
Absolutely.
family. It's
so true.
heart-wrenching.
So true. And you know what? I'll say this little quote from Steve Harvey that I always take with me. There's a interview that he did with an opera singer, and you can Google it.
I might have
Steve
even heard
Harvey,
it. I love
opera
him.
singer. This girl was, they kept telling Steve Harvey, put her on your show, put her on your show. Anyways, he brought her on the show, and here she is uplifting him. And she's like, he goes, I thought I was bringing you on this show because I was doing you a favor, but here you are, you're doing me a favor. And then he talks about his mom, and he says, my mom always said, Steve, God's gonna make you very prosperous. He's gonna make you very well known. But when you get up there, you can't be up there without bringing the people up with you. So that pain that you go through, it's the lessons, and that lesson will help someone else one day.
That is so profound.
You reach down and you take them with you, and you say, I'm not leaving you. I'm not letting you stay down, right? And that's where I am now. I realize, of all my successes, small and big, because you have to go back and you have to see all the minuscule
it's about gratitude.
blessings that have
Yes.
come, because the little blessings mount up to the big ones.
Sure.
And you gotta just stop for a second, realize, even if it's like a month ago, what did I do in this last month? Taking each lesson, going, okay, this look at what I created. right? Because
Wow.
after all, you are the author of your own story.
That's one of my favorite quotes.
Stop.
I always say, like, you're not only the author, you're the director.
You're the director, the captain.
Yeah, the actress.
Yes.
You get to change the script.
Yes.
So, you know what? You wrote that this is supposed to be the way it goes. And
Yes.
that's one thing about being an entrepreneur and a woman and as a
Yes.
human that people don't realize. You know, they make goals and they make this and they don't get to their goal. So
Yes.
they're upset and
Yes.
they beat the crap out
Yes.
of
Yes.
themselves.
Yeah.
And my thing is, change the goal. So
Yeah.
you set a goal for yourself for a month, whatever it is. You know, move up the date because you're
Absolutely.
allowed to. Permit
Mhm.
yourself that,
Yes.
you know, give yourself that permission
Yes.
to move
Mhm.
something
Mhm.
that will still serve you in a way
Absolutely.
that you can still succeed.
Yeah.
And if you're supposed to go left and you go right or you
It's
go
okay.
straight,
That was the master plan in the beginning.
that was the
Right?
See, and
And this ties in with the surrender because
huge.
you know, I believe that our lives are all planned out. God has an infinite plan for us.
Agreed.
And so sometimes we're trying to mold it a certain way. We want to go this way, but God's like, oh, does she really know what's going to happen that way?
Yeah.
And you do it anyways, and then there's a lesson through it. And then
Mhm.
guess what? You're put back on that track. And
Right
you're like,
path.
okay, well now what? And God's like, I think
You'll
you should
figure it
you'll
out.
figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, I think you should have listened. So it's that gut. The gut feeling never lies.
It never lies. See, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, you know, don't listen to your gut. My thing is, so many clients in my investigation business will call me and say, you know, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but I have a gut feeling. I'm like, nope,
Nope.
you and I are the same people.
Yes,
If
yes.
you have a gut feeling, doesn't mean he or she is cheating, doesn't mean there's
Yes.
questionable behavior.
Yes.
It means there's something.
Yeah.
I'm not a fortune teller,
Yes.
but I can
It's
tell
that-
you for sure by the time you get around to saying and taking action on that gut
Yes.
feeling, whatever it is,
Yeah.
there is something.
Absolutely.
And if I look back in my life of all the times I didn't listen to my gut and I kind of
mhm.
said, damn,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
she told me I
Yes.
did not pay attention.
Yes.
I probably would have
Yep.
saved myself a lot of heartache, a lot of
Right.
headache,
Right.
but you have
You
to
have
do
to
the
go
path.
through that. Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to
Yeah.
go through the pain
Yeah.
to get the
Yes.
power,
Yes.
right? I feel
Absolutely.
like, you know, pain, what people like to, you know, call failure,
Mhm.
I call them lessons.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely.
you don't grow when you're
Yes.
sitting comfy on a couch
Yep.
eating potato chips.
Yes.
You
Yes.
grow when you are
Experiencing.
in the trenches.
Yes.
It
Yeah,
shows
absolutely.
you. There's so many stories. We don't have enough memory on this memory card
Yes.
to know and to hear all the stories that I know are
Mhm.
inside you, because I see you as full of love, full of light. And I know you have a health journey story, which I am so incredibly
Yes.
honored to have you share.
Thank you.
And I already see the tears in your eyes, because going through something like that changes a person. I
It
don't
does.
care who
It does.
you are or how strong you are. When you feel that you are going to, and I don't even know if you had your kids or not, we're both boy mamas, which is
Yes.
another reason that we are so connected. And to feel like either you're not going to be there for your family or your
Mhm.
loved ones,
Mhm.
it changes
It
how
does.
you live.
Absolutely.
And I will share a story with you I've
Yeah.
never shared with anybody, but this is not about me. I want to hear your story.
Yeah.
Please tell me.
So I had my 3 boys. I was perfectly healthy. There was nothing wrong with me. I had my last son, which is Julian, and weeks after I started to get very sick. I was losing lots of blood from my rectum. And I'm like, what is going on? I call my mom and she's like, oh no. Because automatically,
Your brain goes
your
to
brain goes to the
the
C
worst.
word.
And
right?
to the worst, correct. That's
So
human nature, sadly.
I could see the tenseness in my mom, and I was like, Mom, don't worry. Like, we're gonna figure it out. Like, something's wrong. We'll get to the bottom of this. So, it was about 2 months of this happening, and they finally scheduled us a colonoscopy. I went for my colonoscopy, and doctors, I think, are so immune to people's feelings. He came out, he's like, okay, so you have ulcerative colitis. here's your prescription, 9 pills a day, and see you later. We'll see you in the office or whatever. And I was like,
I'm so sorry.
I have what?
Like what? Yeah.
What? And so I knew that my first cousin, Anthony, has it, and he always treated it with, cannabis, and he would, he would smoke it, and he would say to me, "Saw, you should smoke it too. It'll help you. If it helps me, it'll help you." And I chose not to. I said, I'm going to go with the doctors, go with, the medicine.
Yeah, that's a choice.
So for 2.5 years, I would completely deteriorate. I was on 22 pills a day. Nothing seemed to be working. I remember one point, the pills were massive. Azicol, they're called. They would go right through my system. So he said to me, look, this is not working. You're on all these pills. I was on prednisone, so my face was really swollen. And if you would see me, you'd think, oh, she's healthy. But I was so unhealthy. I was down to the brat diet, so bananas, applesauce, toast, and very, very bland. So the pills were going through me. So he said, you know what, we're gonna try to get you down on your medications, but we're gonna introduce Remicade. I don't know if you're familiar with Remicade.
So like I said, one of my best friends has the same, and I know she's talked to me and went through just a very similar journey where you have to find what works with your body, which is sort of trial and error, which is so hard on you. It is so hard.
There's not enough research on Crohn's and colitis. So I had ulcerative colitis, which is ulcers in the colon, right?
Which is essentially bleeding sores, for those who don't know what that is. Excruciating pain. And as you mentioned, the diet, and especially being European, we don't stick to the brat diet.
Not at all.
We are all about breaking bread and acidity kind of based foods and healthy garden foods, but still. So you're in this position, you've got 3 young kids, you've got a supportive husband.
Very, very supportive husband. He was amazing. I always say I would not be here without him.
Aww, he's so nice.
In all ways, he's saved me.
Here, you get the first one. And, everybody's so on the Barbie movie. So, forget about the premise of the movie, but it's almost like, to me, beside every amazing woman is a man.
Absolutely.
And you got to meet my hubby today.
Yes, I did.
And for you to talk about your husband like that is so endearing, because obviously one part of my business, people come to me when their lives are falling apart and I'm never going to trust men, I'm never going to trust women, and I'm like, there are good people out there.
There are.
Please do not give up. And see, you are again showing our audience that there are people out there, and he stood behind you, beside you, in front of you when you needed it.
I remember there was just so many points that I was like, gosh, he's not supposed to see any of this, and he was just so supportive.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, but look at who you are. Really, you guys compliment. I've never even met him, but I already love him because he stood beside you. And you're right. Sometimes sickness is a lot for a partner to deal with. Yeah. So it obviously took a super special human to stand beside you.
Totally
did.
And his name is Sandro.
Oh, thank you, Sandro. And so you had the support of him and your mom, and obviously of your family.
Yes.
And so are you working at this point? Are you creative at this point, or not yet?
So I was, I had a very successful home-based daycare.
Daycare, yeah.
And it was actually, ironically, full circle in this exact space.
Oh, love that.
Yes.
I love that.
So I was very successful, and I was so angry because I was doing so well, and I just remember being on my hands and knees and saying, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to me?
You were talking to God, the universe.
I was so angry, things were going so well, right? And I remember a pivotal time when I was at my brother's house and I was, making some barbecue, and his mother-in-law came to me and she said she knew the faith I had. And she said to me, Sonia, she goes, I found God. And I looked at her and I said, you did? I said, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. It was just very brief. She turned around, she left, and there I am cooking barbecue.
And the tears start
falling.
I felt that.
And I'm like, so this is what it's about. Yeah. So some people find you and some people lose you. Because I was so angry. I was angry, right? I was suffering.
Did you think in the midst of this suffering, was there ever a point before the barbecue that you realized you were going through this for a reason?
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Same.
I truthfully, I just was, why is this happening? Like, and when you have a shift in perspective, going, this is happening for me, because now in hindsight I could look back and say,
love this.
That happened for me. God, you did that for me.
Thank
just
you.
Like, I was explaining to you, I had a store. God removed me from there and he placed me right here where I belong.
Right.
And I, not for 1 second did I ever think to myself, why did you do that? I thank him every day, because I'm like, I would not be here creating what I'm creating if it wasn't for that experience, for that, lesson.
I love that. Yeah. But I love that you can, honestly, and that's all I want, is for you to tell me your honesty, because you're right. I would love to say, oh yes, in the middle of the trenches, I put on my lipstick, flipped my hair, and just waited for the lesson to appear. It was just like, am I going down? Like, is this it for me?
Yeah.
Because
you get there.
You feel like you are never going to feel better. And I love your honesty about that, because people are always like, oh, I saw the light. I saw nothing but red.
Yes.
I was angry. I didn't want my faith because I'm a good person. Why is this happening to me?
Totally.
Which is the ego speaking, right? Yes. Versus, why is this happening to me, with me, for me? What's the lesson? And sometimes you don't get the lesson right away, which is also very frustrating, because you're trying to figure it out and say, okay, I'm a good person, and you're breathing and you're praying and you're doing your thing, but it comes to you sometimes after. It comes to you, I think, when you're ready.
Yes, absolutely.
So the barbecue was one of your ready moments.
Yes.
And so at that point, was that a pivotal point for you to go back to your faith, or what was that?
So clearly there was still the connection, right? Because
you never lost the connection.
I never lose the connection. And in fact, I think...
But you veer.
Yes.
You do.
I veered because of my anger. Because I'm like, why? Like, how much does a person have to go through where you're just like, I've had enough? And then, you go through everything else, and then you're like, that's why. That's why.
And what is your why?
I think because I had, God molds you. He molds you with all the experiences, all the heartache, all the love, all the blessings, all the tears, everything. And you become who you're supposed to be. And without those lessons...
So you veered off your path.
I veered off it because I'm like, I was angry. I'm like, what is this for? So I think that the relationship that you have at any particular moment, right? Whether you're angry, God likes that. I think he like, how do I explain
Tests it?
It's
Tests
like,
us almost?
Yeah.
Tests your faith?
Test my faith, because it could have been different. It could be very different.
We could not be here today,
right?
Whether it have been something completely traumatic, which we're not even going to go there, or because you were in another business, because you were in this store, there was a reason.
There's a reason for it.
That
absolutely
all of our sort of paths cross, and so just the story as you're telling me with all my little baby hairs on end, it feels like you weren't on your path. And just to totally freak you out, and I've never shared this with anybody, and especially on camera, but I had the exact same thing happen to me after my fourth son was born but I have IBS. Really? So as a word of a lie, except I actually did almost die. So they perforated my large intestine during a colonoscopy.
Oh my goodness.
So when I woke up, I'm on the floor rolling around. Like, keep in mind, I've had 4 C-sections.
Yes.
Okay, so I know what pain.
Girl, we're so connected.
See, oh my God. Okay, and so.
Wait a second.
I can't even
3
believe.
plus my life-saving surgery, they had to cut me on the same line. So I have 4 on the same line. I have literally 4 marks on my C-sections. 4. And you have 4 too.
4, but always 4s. You know, I've been trying to figure out 4s. I'll go back to my story in a minute.
Yeah, sorry.
But don't be sorry. I love this because I'm very much a number person.
Wow.
It's always 4s. And you know, we'd be at hockey and I'd go like this to my husband. The clock, it would be overtime, 4-4,
Yes.
4th period, it'd stop at 4:44. I'm like,
those are the
just
angels.
saying. and I had 2 goalies, so man, the angels needed to be present. But I was just like, where are the 4? And I get what all the spiritual meaning is.
Yeah.
Until I realized 4 is my 4 boys.
Yes.
That's the answer. Why am I looking elsewhere, right?
Yes.
It's always been about them.
Absolutely.
So it's just so funny. And then on the way here, as you and I were texting, you're like, OMG,
Yes.
744, 40, and I'm like,
Yes.
I just dropped the phone. I'm like, I don't even know. I think we were separated at birth
I
at
think
some
so
point.
too.
You know, because we are so connected in
Yes.
so many
Yes.
outstanding ways. And you know, the whole kind of reason I started I Am Unbreakable is to meet incredible women like you.
Absolutely.
And
I can feel that.
to showcase who you are. What, you know, this somewhere here, the struggle is part of the story.
Yes.
It's about sharing that story. I don't want to hear, I do want to hear about rainbows and unicorns,
Yes,
but
yes.
it is about the struggles because that is life, and that's where people, like you said, need that hand. Come on,
Absolutely.
you're not alone.
Yes.
I'm here.
Yes.
So building this community of rock star women
Wow.
like you is
Wow.
to me what it's all about.
Yes, I
and
feel
you're
that's
sharing
true.
such honesty and such personal details about your life. And whether you reach, like you and I chatted about, 1 person or 1 million people,
Yes,
you are
yes.
changing lives by
Absolutely.
sharing your journey.
Yes.
Do you
And
believe that?
I so believe that. I think I shared this with you when I was approached by Mary from the Crohn's and colitis to
Yes,
speak
I
in
love
front
this
of
story.
700 people. I thought, how many people? She said, we're expecting 6, but there could be 7. And I said, no, sorry. I said, Mary, I can't. I can't. I can't. Like, I was scared.
Of course.
I hung up the phone.
Fear.
And fear, right? I kind of was doing my own thing, and then it just came to me. Even if you help 1 person out of those 700, just 1. Even if your story just touches 1 person, you've done what you're supposed to.
Exactly.
And so I called her up
you
again.
touched 1 million people, but
I literally called her up and I said, Mary, if the offer is still there, I would love to be your keynote speaker. And that's what I did. I went up there. I was a little shaky because it was my first,
of course,
being able to speak in front of an audience of 700. That was something for me.
But if you weren't nervous, you wouldn't have done as rock star as you did, because I already know you've done great.
Thank you.
Do you have any footage of that?
I do.
I
do.
would like to
it's
share
somewhere
that.
in my videos. I'll send it to you.
I would love that, and I want you to share it with your amazing following as
I
well.
will.
Because people want to know who you are.
Yeah.
Because I felt who you are immediately. And I know from an entrepreneur standpoint, people are more buying into people versus businesses, because your product, I have to say nothing. Look at the backdrop.
Thank you.
I can't even, when we first came in, of course, the hugging.
Yes.
But I couldn't keep my eyes off the beauty that you have created.
Thank you.
From within, because to be a creative person, I'm very creative as well, but those who don't know, to create anything, whether it's beautiful and sparkly and shiny, or just a piece of art that is special to you, you have to have this connection. And I immediately felt it with you. And we're gonna show everybody around before we leave.
For sure.
But so I'll finish my
I was gonna
story.
say,
That was
finish
so.
your story there.
But
I'm sorry
I
to
still want. No, you did not interrupt. We have so many
I
things to
know.
talk about. I feel like we need to have like 6 parts to our
Yes.
chat. But very similar story, and you and I have so many connecting stories, which I
Yes.
love. But yes, he kindly perforated my large intestine, which at the time I didn't know. And he was like, oh, I gave you so much morphine, you should be fine. And, everybody else was sitting up and eating cookies like biscuits and tea, and
Right.
I'm rolling around the floor.
Oh,
I remember
no.
standing out in the hallway, and I said to my husband, I said, something is very wrong. And he's like, well, we've talked to the doctor. He basically kicked us out. I was the first one to go in, the last one to leave. I couldn't even walk. So I get home, I start calling, and I ate something, which now looking back, I could have died from that.
Well, yeah.
So I wake up, I didn't sleep, but he said, call in the morning if you still feel bad, it's gas. I'm like, this is not gas. I've had 4 C-sections, I know what pushing up against a scar, remember the gas?
Yes.
The worst feeling ever. But anyways, that's another story for another time. Anyways, and I must have nodded on and off from the painkillers. I woke up, I looked like I was carrying triplets.
Oh, no.
And he's like, get in the office now, because I sent him a picture. And so they met me downstairs. He's like, you're not coming in, emergency is waiting for you, go. And I'm like, well, what's wrong? And he's like, I probably perforated something.
Oh no.
So I go in and I'm like, again, it's still not registering, because I've just been through 18 hours of pain. Anyways, basically, they put me in front of like head trauma surgeries.
Oh my.
They're saying, you should probably contact a lawyer, say goodbye to your kids. Like, now I'm gonna need the Kleenex, but that was my thing, thank you, where it was like, this is how it's gonna end. They're like,
no.
because like, have you eaten? Because I guess you can become septic, right? And I'm like, so this is how it's gonna end? They're like, we just don't know.
Your life flashed before you.
Yeah, and my husband and I are bawling, and all I could think of is, oh my God, and my kids were so young. The baby wasn't even like 4 months old, and my other ones were under 8, excuse me, and that's how I thought it was gonna end. So long story short, then they did the surgery. They couldn't even tell me if I was gonna be okay.
Wow.
And so, life-changing. But while you're in that, and it was probably 3 or 4 days, I made deals with God, with spirit, with the universe, like, I promise I will, please don't take me from these, all I cared about, of course, is your family, but the kids, right? How are they, they're not even gonna remember you, right? I'm sure you felt that way.
I did. I remember being, like, they knew me at RVH in Barrie, Royal Victoria Hospital. As soon as I would go in, any calendar year I would be there for like 10 to 12 times. So when I would walk in, they knew me. And one particular time I remember saying, okay, I'm not getting a room that's not near the window. Like, I don't get to see my kids. I'm in here for weeks at a time. I need a window. And so I would talk to my kids. Back then, like, we had FaceTime, but it was very different. It was very new.
And how many years ago was this?
This was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I said to my husband, bring the boys. So he would bring them to the window, and I would like wave. I'd have all machines attached to me, and I would wave. I never wanted them to see me that way, because I'm like, I don't want them to see me, hooked up to all these machines, You
didn't want that to be their memory.
I didn't want that to be their memory. So I go through a lot of traumatic things with ulcerative colitis. It's not a fun journey, that's for sure.
No. But somehow, when you were there, somehow you're here. Coincidence? I don't think so.
No. Coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous.
Correct. Oh, another T-shirt. Yes, true.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there was
when it's
a
unexplainable,
reason.
it's God.
Very, because you weren't supposed to make it.
I wasn't.
What did they say to you? Just kind of live your fullest life, and
I'd have moments. There was one moment where I was frozen from my head to my toes. When I say frozen, meaning like every joint in my body was inflamed, so I was unable to move.
Okay, I'm thinking when you said frozen that they sort of gave you almost
Oh,
like
no.
an epidural.
No, sorry, I guess
So,
I
no,
misheard.
tell
Yeah.
me, please.
So,
So frozen meaning you
ulcerative-
couldn't move.
Yeah, I couldn't move. Like every single joint in my body was like inflamed. So I remember one point where it was from my head to my toes. Like normally I would have my hand swollen and I would be off to RVH because they'd have to give me a shot of Toradol. It's an anti-inflammatory, right? Because with that would be pain.
A lot of pain, I can imagine.
Yeah. I remember specifically one time I went for my foot and the doctor's like, you must have fractured it. And I said, no. I said, I have ulcerative colitis. He's like, I've never heard this before. And I said to him, some ulcerative colitis patients get inflammation in their joints. He's like, I've never heard of this.
How ironic that you are
I was
teaching
the doctors.
That because some people don't know.
Yeah.
It's not, there isn't enough research,
Not
there
enough.
isn't enough media,
Yeah.
there isn't enough
Yeah.
funding, there
Yeah.
isn't enough
Nothing.
information
Yeah.
and teaching for the doctors
Yes, he was
to
shocked.
treat you.
He thought this girl, she fractured it. And I said, I need to send you off for x-rays. I said, send me wherever you want to send me,
First give me
but
my
give me
shot."
my shot because I am in so much pain. Like my ankle was so swollen. I said, I'm in so much pain. I said, I can't. I was in the wheelchair, so my husband brought me over to the x-ray.
Sandra.
Yeah,
God
Sandra
love
brought
him.
me over. I did the x-ray, came out, and when he came back, he goes,
Shocking.
you taught me something today. He goes, I actually went back and did some research. He's like, I had no idea. He's
So
like,
that's why you suffered, because now.
so he can go and, okay, next patient that comes
Bravo.
in, right, would learn that lesson. Okay, all right. So I can't say that it's possibly not ulcerative colitis, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
So you taught him, and indirectly, but really directly,
Yes.
you are helping other people.
I didn't even realize
With-
it. Yeah. So he gave me the shot of Toradol, and then I was off. And he's like, well, thank you so much for teaching me that, because I had no clue. So that was one particular time. Another, like, traumatic time for me was I had that all over my body. So I remember calling, like I could just barely call my husband, and I called him and I said, babe, I'm in so much pain. I said, I gotta call the ambulance. And he was out. He's like, call the ambulance. He goes, I'll call my sister to come get the kids. And he
'Cause you're at
goes,
home
because
with all the
I was
boys."
at home. So as I'm waiting for the ambulance to arrive, I had Julian, who was 5 months old, and I had Mateo and Daniel as well. Mateo was 5 years old, and Julian had a bowel movement. And I'm sitting there, and I said to Mateo, Mateo, can you do me a favor? I said, Mommy needs your help. I said, see the table? I said, I literally walked him through it. I said, there's wipes, there's diapers. I need your help. Mommy needs your help. And so
all you could think of.
all I could think about, I'm literally watching my 5-year-old change my baby, and I'm like, is this what a mom is supposed to do?
Yes.
So this is not a mom. I'm like, I prayed at that moment. I'm like, God, take me. Take me. This is not what a mother's supposed to do. And I'm like, this is not even like his responsibility. He was 5.
I know, but that is exactly what he's supposed to do, because you're teaching him
Yeah, I feel
about
like-
love and family. It's his
Mhm.
brother,
He
and it's
has-
his mom.
Yeah. So that was like really hard for me to
Of
see.
course. But it's those
being
things.
helpless,
Feeling
feeling
helpless.
helpless that I couldn't help my baby, and I just prayed and prayed. So my sister-in-law came, grabbed the boys. I went off to the hospital, and again Toradol they gave me. So that was really, really hard to go through.
So now you're in this at what point? For 2 years at this
It's
point?
about 2 years. Yeah. So I had 22 pills a day. They also introduced Remicade, which is an infusion treatment. And at the time, I don't know what it is now, but at the time, 8 years ago, it was not covered by OHIP, and that was $5,500 per dose. So I'm sitting there, and the
What?
doc. So I'm like, how much per dose? loss? And how many, you have to have it every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on your system. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that's like, do the math on a year. That's over $100,000. Where am I going to get this $100,000? Like, this is crazy. And they're like, oh, don't worry. We're going to figure it out. So, because they worry about your health first.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there for 4 hours, because 3 hours, Is
this new though? Like, why wouldn't they have introduced this before the 2-year period to watch you suffer this way?
Well, because it's so expensive and it's not covered by OHIP. So they try Azicol, they try
everything.
Imuran.
2 years?
Yeah, they try different medications to. Well, I was suffering because I'm like, okay, this is not working. Now what? Okay, well, we're gonna try this, and it's like they were being, trying this, trying that, and nothing really was working. So finally, they said, okay, we're gonna do Remicade. So at that point, I'm freaking out because I'm like,
how am I going to pay for this?
And they're like, don't worry, we'll figure it out. There's also Trillium, which is based on, like, they figure out your home income and all that. Yep. So I was like, okay,
so this
is what it is. I have to do it. So, but I was sitting there and I'm like, there's got to be more to life than this. I'm not, like, I got to be hooked up to this machine every 4 to 6 weeks. What is in this bag that's going through my system? That was going through my mind. I'm like, what is in there? Right? I was just scared, right? Because any less medications, I don't want to take anything, right? But
of course,
this is after, like, the 22 pills weren't working, the Remicade. So I had 3 doses of that. 3 doses. And then
was it an instant feel better?
No, I felt better for like a couple of weeks, and then it was like back to normal. And I'm like, what the? And normal would be like going to the washroom over 15 times a day.
Yeah. And
blood and all that, right? So at that point, after the 3, the doctor had given me like a strict schedule, and he's like, I want you to follow this schedule of pills, because he goes, you can't be on all these pills plus Remicade. He goes, your system is just gonna like shut down. So he's like, I need you to follow this strict schedule, come down on the pills exactly as the weeks go by. He's like, now when we get to the bottom, he's like, one of 2 things are gonna happen. And I said, what? He's like, either a total miracle and I won't have to see you again, or we'll see you at the hospital with your toothbrush and your bag, because you're going to be staying. So I was like, this is the end.
So you're like making deals at this point with God and everybody else.
I battled 2.5 years. Yeah. This is what it's come to. Like, and I kind of could see, right? I'm going to come down, and sure enough, I got to that point. I called my husband. I said, I got to go to the hospital. I said, this is it. I've been inevitably like wanting to not lose my colon, and here I am. So in the hospital, I deteriorated for about a week. It was the most scariest thing in my life. So
when you say deteriorated, do you mean?
I was black like your shirt, black. The very last, because I was losing everything. Nothing was staying in my system. My pills were going right through my system. And I remember going to the bathroom the last time. I remember looking at the toilet, and I'm like, I've never seen anything like that. And I said to my husband, is that normal? He's like, I'm going to go call the nurse, because it was literally bright green. And I'm like, what F is this? So he went to go call the nurse. As I look up in the mirror, I literally see death. I'm all black. I'm caved in. I'm just like, I was shocked. And my husband's like, you're beautiful. No, I'm not. Look at me. And he's like, you're beautiful. Stop. He's like, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. So I went to go lie down. He went to go call the nurse. And she's looked at it, and she's like, no, that's her vials. This is not good. And so he said to me, Sonia, he's like, I only parked for an hour. He's like, but I'm going to go and change it because I want to stay with you. And apparently at this point, I couldn't put a couple of words together. And
Do you remember
I
him
don't,
saying that? No.
I don't remember a lot of it because I was in between, I guess. I don't even know where I was. But I do remember telling him, can you tell the nurse I feel numb? So the nurse came over and she goes, where are you numb? And I said, here. Like I was kind of pointing where I was numb. And I don't know how, but she called code blue on me. And I was in a private room at that time.
She called
code blue. Code blue is like,
yeah, I know what code blue
Yeah.
is. That means, yeah,
it's
no
done.
oxygen,
Like no nothing.
oxygen,
Yeah.
no nothing. Yeah.
So he was walking to go move the car,
Did
and
they
he
call him?
heard no, because in the hospital you hear code blue room blah blah blah, the room number.
Oh my God.
So he's walking. He's like, that's my wife. So he, like, I have goosebumps. He
I
turned
do too.
around. He
Look.
turned around, and they shut the door on him by the time he got there. And he's like, what the heck is going on? I could hear him. So I'm lying there. I have this nurse on this side, and she's like, don't worry, you're gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. This one here, she's got a flashlight in my eye, and she's like, smile, raise your eyebrows. And she's looking at me, and I can't move my face. So I can hear, I can see, I know exactly, I have all these doctors all over my body. I don't know what's happening, but I hear signs of stroke. So in my mind, I'm like, am I having a stroke right now?
I have chest pain now, just you saying that.
Yeah. So it was kind of like a movie where I felt like I was trapped in
like
my
in
body.
Outer body
experience. Like I was watching everything. I'm seeing everything. They're all like all over my body. They're I don't even know what they were doing, but I was surrounded by doctors. And I go, what the heck is going on? Am I having a stroke? Like, and I know at the time, all I could think about feeling my grandfather's presence, because I'm like, my grandfather had a stroke. I'm like, no, you're with me. I feel it. I knew it. So they kind of cleared all the departments, respiratory, all the, I guess, departments that all the doctors had swarmed in.
Yeah.
And there was one nurse, and she looked at me. She's like, I gotta go check one thing. She goes, I'll be right back. And I'm like, okay, like, what? I can't even move, right? And as she left, a couple minutes later, I'm by myself in my room, and literally I've got a faucet right beside me, and it's pouring. And I'm looking, and I'm like, it's a motion faucet. There's nobody there. And I'm like, okay, no, I hear you. It was like, kind of like a sign letting me know he was there with me, because I was terrified. Like my whole body was shaking. I was terrified. So,
oh my God, and okay.
All the while my husband's outside, and I hear them talking to him. Well, we think she had a stroke. So at this point, he calls my mom, who was supposed to be coming up in the afternoon. She had my kids. So my husband calls my mother and tells her they think Sonia had a stroke. So my mom's like, what? Oh my God, what are we gonna do? So she called my grandmother, who was there, and she goes, Ma, let's go, Ma. So my grandmother's ready for lunch with my boys, and she goes, what do you mean? She goes, we gotta go to the hospital. They think Sonia had a stroke. So it's like my grandfather is her wife, right? So she's the wife, right? So, and she's like, oh no, right? Like, I'm reliving this now, right? So my mom just didn't even think. She went to my mother-in-law's, dropped off the kids. My husband didn't call my mother-in-law to let her know. So she was in shock, and she was like, what am I gonna do? Literally, Julian's like a baby. What are we gonna do? Oh my God. So I remember my mom, because like I said, I was in between with all the medications that they were giving me. And anyway, so they concluded that it was a reaction to the cocktail. Yeah, because they had given me a double dose of Remicade in the hospital.
Is that why the nurse said, hold on a sec, I'll be right back? She kind of picked
up on it. Wow. So she said, so they were giving me double dose of Remicade, iron, potassium, calcium, and magnesium, all through the IV. So she's like, we need to do a CT scan of your brain to see if you had a stroke. when I went there, like, so my mom shows up and she's rubbing my leg. She's like, Sonia, you didn't have a stroke. I know God wouldn't do this to you. And I'm like, you know what, Mom? It's okay if he did. I was at peace. Like, everybody was like, you know, I would trade places with you. And I'm like, it's okay. I was at peace. And I know sometimes, like, seeing a loved one in the bed, you feel like you want to take their pain away. You don't want them to suffer. But there comes a point in that kind of suffering where you're at peace.
You think it was because of your grandfather?
I feel like he was always with me. He never left me. So maybe it was his peace, but I was okay with whatever God was going to plan for me. I was okay if God was going to take me because it was my time. You know, age is, I always say this, age is just a number. It really is.
One of my favorite sayings, absolutely.
It's just a number.
1000%.
Right? So when you realize that, you're like, we're just here for a brief moment. Like, poof, and it's gone.
That's why they say live in the moment.
Totally live in the moment.
Be mindful of today or of this minute, of this moment. Because nobody's promised tomorrow.
No. And that's where it would lead me after I had the code blue on me and
so you went for your CT scan.
Yep, came back negative because they called it a reaction to the cocktail.
Right.
But I was still deteriorating even more because not even the double dose of Remicade was working. And I do believe everything is with intention. So they were giving me stuff and I was just like, this is not gonna work. Like, I knew it wasn't gonna work.
You knew.
I knew it.
Intuitively you knew.
Yeah, because if you have intention going, this is gonna work, and you take a pill, it'll work. It's like a placebo effect.
I was just gonna say,
right?
Correct.
Totally.
Yeah.
In my mind, I had already declined it. I was like, I don't want that stuff. I don't even know what's in there. I was just scared of it, right?
Yes.
But I'm like, hey, I'm here at the end. Do whatever you gotta do, right? So after my CT scan, I came back and I would deteriorate even more. So the Dr. Riordan of RVH Berry, she came in. I don't remember any of it. I don't remember what she looked like. I don't remember the 3-hour conversation she had with my family. None of it. I was at the end. And
was she sort of preparing them?
She was preparing them. Yeah. My mom, like, they said to my mom, like, we don't even know if she's gonna make it out of this. We don't even know. Like, she's really weak. So after the 3-hour of informative thing, because she was trying to say to them, I don't know how infected her colon is, whether it's this much, a whole thing, like whether we're gonna go in, take a piece, we don't know. And we don't know until we go in there, right? So clearly she needs the surgery. We can't, like, you know, what's the point of doing another CT scan of her bowels when we know she's going to be, that's where she's inevitably going to be going down, right? So they gave her best case scenario, worst case scenario, kind of like, we'll see how it goes. Now, this is a general surgeon. She was younger than I was. I was 33 at this time. She was 30. And I swore, I said someone whispered in her ear to go check my blood work, because when this happened, this was 11 o'clock. She was in there for 3 hours, and she said, I have to go check her blood work because we have a spot at midnight, but I still want to see how she's doing. She came back after half an hour, and that's when she stared deep in my eyes and my soul, and she said, if you don't get in there right now, you're gonna kiss everybody goodbye. And I was like, oh my God, this is it.
Oh my God.
I lost my battle. Here it is. It was just like, this is it. So within minutes, they wheeled me off. My whole family was dressed in white drapes, like in a tiny, tiny elevator, and I'm looking around.
Were they really, or this was what you saw?
Oh no, this is what it was.
Yes.
We were
okay.
they all were able to bring me, because they didn't even know if I was gonna make it out. So it was like they were treating it like, say goodbye, because we don't know. So they wheeled me off, and then I was out for 6.5 hours. I understood from my dad. My dad said, Sandra didn't stop pacing the hallways. He goes, he was pacing, he was worried about your life. He was, he was so scared.
Of course.
So I woke up, and I remember I had the little button. And
The
I'm
pain
like,
button.
yeah, so I woke up and I'm like, I remember the pain button. Because I had 3 C-sections. So I'm like, I remember this.
You're like, no.
Yeah, and not remembering anything that happened, I don't recall any of it. I said, oh, what the heck happened? And then I look here, and I see these nurses working on me, and I'm like, what? I literally said, what the F is that? I woke up, I had this bag attached to me. So I'm like, what is going on? The nurse is like, don't worry, you're gonna figure this out, you're gonna be good, you're good, don't worry. And I was like, don't worry. What the heck?
Yeah.
So I would understand after, my mom came in, she was like to me, are you okay? Like, you okay? I said, Ma? I said, I want one thing. She's like, what do you want? I'll go get it. What do you want? I said, Ma, I want pasta and meatballs. She goes to me,
You're okay.
No. I said, I have the most hunger that I've never seen in my life. Like, I need to eat.
Oh my God, that must have made her European
my
soul
mom
right away.
was like, I'm going home.
She knew.
Yeah, she was
knew.
like, I'm going home. I'm going to make pasta and meatballs for my baby girl. Because I was just like, 3 years, 2.5 years. I was always, like, she would cook and I'd be like, okay, Ma, just a little bit on the side, just like no sauce, very plain, And
So you saw her first.
so I saw her first, and she was like, oh my gosh, like, never would have thought, maybe you want a blanket or something. I wanted pasta and meatballs. She was like, even to today, she still talks about it. And, so I would recover. I would feel a lot better, except I had this new thing attached to me. And I would understand after when Dr. Riordan would come back in, she's like, girl, she's like, you were in a really bad state. She's like, you just lost your whole colon and your rectum. And I'm like, what? She's like, everything is gone. And I was like, is that why I feel so hungry? I feel like I need to.
Over
she
here.
goes, everything is gone. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean? So now my family knew everything. Now I had to get familiar with what was going on, and so from there, she's like to me, I want to see you in a week. I said, okay.
So you got to leave?
I got to leave. It was about a couple of weeks later.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you gained a bit of weight.
I gained
You
weight.
got your color back. You got your pasta and meatballs.
Yes, I got my pasta and meatballs. I remember being in my family room, and my aunt came over to visit.
Oh, is this the I Found God aunt?
No, this is somebody else.
Another
This is my
one.
mom's sister. So she came over, and I hear her whispering to my mom, and she says, Sandra, you really have to watch out for her. I don't want her to go, into severe depression. And I just peeked my head out like this, and I said, Zia, there's no reason to be depressed here. I have my life. You know what a blessing that is? How could I be depressed? How?
Yes.
And I remember saying, if I have to live with this thing for the rest of my life,
I get to live.
I get to live. I get to live.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. And what did your mom and aunt were probably in tears?
So they were just like, whoa.
This woman is
Yeah.
strong
Yeah.
and resilient.
Yes.
A rock star.
Nothing got me down. Nothing. Not even like almost my life being taken from me would stop me. I just was like, life is so beautiful. And
so
you
beautiful.
can choose how you want to live it. You can despite what's happened to you, or so much more than what has happened to us. Like I could have forever been in a miserable state going, oh, I got this thing attached to me, and you know.
But you could have died.
Oh, and I could have died.
That's the you could have not
right?
watched your children grow up.
Yeah.
You could have not had them
Yes.
call you mom because the baby still wasn't speaking at that time.
Yes.
And so you were to go back a week. Oh, you didn't tell me when you saw Sandro. I do have to hear your love story.
So like after my surgery?
Yeah, you saw your mom. She went to Meatballs.
Yeah.
And sauce and pasta.
Yes.
And then
he
came in.
He came in. I remember him being full of tears, and he just looked at me, and I could sense a relief from him. Where I was just like,
your suffering's
my
over.
suffering is done. Like, we can put this behind me, and wherever this takes me, like, it'll make me just stronger. Because like, it's one thing to be the person who's, you know, being in care, and then there's the person like my husband Sandro. He was the caregiver, and
very different and very difficult.
Very different. And I remember even my mom telling me a story about a couple that she knew. They ended up divorcing because of the stress, and
It's very stressful.
It's very stressful, like stressful even in financial, because it's like, you know, he would have to take care of me, so we were
and
like,
the kids
and
right, the finances and everything.
But it just
look at
proves
you're worth
proves our love, proves like, you know, and I
in sickness and in health.
And you know what, after I recovered, literally 6 months after this, he had a double lung collapse, and it's probably your husband.
I don't know.
We were
because we're still filming. Yeah, you can come down if you want to be in the video. Okay,
we were in the same exact hospital. I was here in my room, and he was like right across. And I said to my husband, I'm like, I guess I'm repaying this for you. I'm paying it forward.
But what was it? A double bite?
So he had, it's called spontaneous pneumothorax. Yeah.
What is
so
that?
Did you ever watch the movie Just Like Heaven?
Yeah. Oh,
do you know where the guy or girl, whoever's on the floor, and the guy's like, get me a lid, I can't remember, a knife and whatever, and he took the air out of his lungs.
Yes.
And she goes, I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor. This is spontaneous pneumothorax. And that's exactly what it is. So what happens is his lungs collapse, and the cavity around filled with air instead of his lungs. So
wow.
So yeah. So then I would be able to be there for him when he needed me. So it's just
beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm still like reeling from your story. Excuse me, but 6 months later that happens. And are you kind of saying, universe, God, what up, Buttercup?
Yes.
Right?
I was
You're like,
always,
have I not?
Right.
You know, but you probably said it with a much lighter heart.
I did. I almost was like, okay, so whatever happened to me, you know, there's a reason for it, right? I think that, thank God it didn't happen at the same time, because God, I don't know how I'd be able to get through that. We would have. Look
what you just went through. Right? Of course you would have.
So, it's just such a journey. And
that's only one part of your amazing story. I have to ask you 2 closing questions before we say to be continued.
Yes.
So after you went back a week later, what did the doctor say? Because she said 2 things to you. Things will not end well.
Yes.
And you'll kiss your loved ones goodbye, or you'll be a miracle.
That was the GI doctor.
Oh, gotcha.
This was the general surgeon at the hospital. So not even my doctor did surgery on me. This is like the doctor who was on call. Super young girl. And not even remembering what she looked like. I had to go see her in a week. So I said to my husband, babe, you gotta take me to the doctor's office. Okay. So we're going there, and I'm, of course, crying. I'm crying.
Of course.
And he's like, are you okay? I said, yeah. I said, I'm just really emotional. Like, I said to him, what do I say to this woman who saved my life. Like, what do you say? What do you do?
What did you say?
So I remember the nurse called me in, so I went into her office, waiting. I'm thinking, how can I explain what I'm feeling right now? So she came in and I said to her, Dr. Riordan, I said, that's what you look like.
Aww.
And she said, girl, you look amazing. And it's only been a week.
Wow.
And I said to her, she's like, so how's it going? I said, I want to tell you about how I'm feeling, but I just want to express my gratitude. And she's like, for what? And I said, Dr. Riordan, you saved my life. I said, I don't know what to do to thank you.
Exactly.
And she goes, oh, stop. Like, I do this
gonna
every day.
Yeah.
She's like, stop. And I said, no, you really saved my life. She goes, okay, fine, I did.
You're like, okay, but.
She's like, yeah, okay, I did save your life. And I said, like, I'll be forever grateful because I would not be here. Even if, when you said, I got to go check her blood work, something told you to go check your blood work.
Exactly.
My blood work, or else I wouldn't be here.
And what did she say?
And she said, I do this for a living. She goes, I save people and I don't even recognize it. And she's like, this is great that you're acknowledging
making her stop
her every move as a general surgeon to like.
It's matter of fact, right? And she doesn't realize maybe that there are humans behind, and families and loved ones and children behind the lives that she saves. Yeah. So good on you. See, even in a time where you should be, okay, well, what about this? What about that? Am I going to be, you thought of others.
Yes, I'm always.
And you lived in gratitude, which is, now, I mean, even scientifically speaking, they are saying mindfulness and gratitude will be the healer of everything.
Absolutely.
All your pain, physically, mentally, emotionally, anxiety, depression, if you live in the moment and you're grateful, how could you be sad and upset?
No, you can't.
Right?
Like, it's either one or the other, because they're
you can't
literally
experience
opposite. You can't experience both spectrums at the same time. So
that's the
you
answer.
have a choice. You have a choice to say, am I going to be here or am I going to be here? Right? It's like, yes, this crap has happened to me, but what has it done for me? What has it taught me? How has this experience blessed me?
And for people who don't have the answers, it's okay.
It's
because it's going to come to them, right? It's not always like you go through this and you're like, you have this is why I'm here, or this is why it happened. It can come later, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Because I think the gifts are given to us when we need them.
Yes.
I don't think they're always there, because, lots of times you're like, please help me. Like you said, like, why me? You weren't granted that answer because you had to figure it out on your own.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And what a beautiful lesson.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, first of all, for sharing such an intimate moment and such an intimate part of who you are. But I told you, I'm like, there's a story. And you wrote me back, there are many.
There are many.
So your story kind of moving forward from here. So you have this miracle, because I call you a miracle.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe that's going to be your name, Rockstar, Miracle Rockstar, right? So many things I could call you. Wonderful. But so you have this miracle. In closing, how does your life change from this miracle that was granted to you? Now I know what happened with Sandro. Very, very tough. But how has that shaped you in the last several years to who you are? Because I don't want to say you forget, because something like that, you don't ever forget those.
I always thought, am I ever going to be able to get through my story without crying?
No. Why?
And it doesn't matter, because it's who I am, it's where I've been, and it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay to cry. And I'll share something with you. I was on my very first business trip. And I'm sitting in one of the seminars, and the girl who's the keynote, she says, as a businesswoman, you shouldn't cry because it shows you're a sign of weakness. And so there I am, literally
bawling.
front row, and I'm bawling, I'm like, well, this is a great start. I spent so much money to get here. I'm all the way in Utah. I'm like, what the heck? So, and she continues on, but then she realizes that I am bawling, and I'm like,
trying to
tell her, like, keep going, don't, like, disregard me, like, you know. And I didn't take one word that she said, not one word.
I love
because
that.
all I kept thinking of,
She thinks I'm weak.
She thinks I'm weak.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks I'm weak.
Yeah.
So anyway, so after the seminar there was lunch. So we all go upstairs. I chose to sit here, and this girl goes to get her lunch. Like, the table was empty. She could have sat anywhere. She sat right beside me. And I was trying not to talk because I was like, oh, this is going to be awkward. And she said, I'm so sorry. She's like, I didn't mean to make you cry. And I looked at her and I said, you know what, Priya? I said, you don't know who I am, nor do you know where I've been. I can assure you, I've had enough pain in my life to last several lifetimes. I said, and I will assure you that my tears are not a sign of weakness. They are strength.
Oh.
And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, exactly that. You don't know where anybody in your audience has been. You don't know who they are.
Of course.
And she said, you're right. And she's like, if you don't mind, can you share some of your story? I said, I'd love to. So I sat there, we're eating lunch, and then there I am sharing my story, and next thing you know, she's crying. And I said, Priya, you're crying. She said, Sonia, she goes, you just taught me something.
Wow.
She said, I will never use that in my opening speech again.
I love that. See?
And I said,
because the message
is, maybe you were taught as a little girl that it's not okay to cry. But I can tell you that release, you need it. It's part of the healing.
It's part of the healing, and doesn't it make you feel so human?
It does.
That you have these feelings that are so deep and so unique and so powerful.
Yeah.
To me,
it's like
they're
you're
power
masking
tears.
it. Yeah. Why would you mask it? Why would you?
I don't
just
know
like,
what her
right?
keynote was about, but that to me, and maybe it was about how to be, a female in a man's world. Who knows?
Right.
But I think it's totally okay and cool to cry because if not, so what, you're going to be this complete person that's cut off. Which was my question, which was, how did this sort of change you? And you never forget.
No,
I'll
never forget. Never forget where I've been. I know everything that I've been through has taught me one or two lessons,
or several.
I believe that we're here to perfect our souls. We're here to learn all the lessons that we may have missed in a previous life, only to take with us on the next lifetime. And I know people don't believe in this, but I honestly believe
I do.
You are who you are, and you take certain things, and you chose to be here at this specific time, and there's a reason for it, and you take all that you learned with you. All that you learned with you.
So beautiful.
And it's a journey. And as you were saying with your tattoo, I always say the joy is in the journey. Because it's you're going through it and it sucks, but that's the best part. Like
1,000%. Well, you'll see one of my other podcasts, one of the tattoos I want to get is life's a journey, not a destination.
Yes.
But it's from the Aerosmith song,
right.
Obviously, hence the wings.
Yeah,
or what.
yes.
But it is about the journey, but it's about the story. But why would you mask the struggles and the pain?
Yeah.
So you're not giving reality. It's sort of, what. That's why I say when people, I want to bring that reality, the trueness, the authentic. I can't talk for a second, but the authenticity that a soul like you brings, because if not, then so what? We're just going to see all these perfect people on social media.
No, life isn't perfect.
There's bumps, there's bruises, there's trauma, there's illness, and then there's joy, happiness,
Yes.
And it's like this. I don't
Yep.
think anything is a straight line. That's why
Nothing's
when
a
people
straight line.
don't like share their struggles, I
Mhm.
think we can't teach people. And
Yeah.
how you taught not only the doctor
Yes.
in the ER,
Yes.
but the keynote
Yes.
and other lives that
Yeah.
you've touched.
Mhm. Mhm.
You've been a teacher
Mhm.
as well. I think you need
Yes.
to include that in your bio,
Aw.
saying
Actually, a lot of people have told me that
You-
you're like a teacher. You've taught me so much, and I'm like, I guess I don't acknowledge that part. So thank you, because I needed to hear that.
oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
yourself
Thank you.
with us. Can I give you a hug?
Yes.
Oh,
And of course,
this
heart
way,
to heart.
heart to heart.
to
You taught
heart.
me how to hug
Love.
properly. I love you to pieces.
I love you too.